With their cutely cropped hair and matching clothes, these cherubic children looked like an image of innocence and happiness. But what if I tell you that in reality, they are the prisoners of a delusional cult leader on a drug-fueled mission? And the mission is to gather these kids in preparation for an apocalyptic war. Yes, you heard it right. It sounds creepy, but wait until it gets even creepier. Anne Hamilton-Byrne, the charismatic mother figure who led this so-called weird and creepy Australian sect known as the Family, thought she was the reincarnation of Jesus Christ. Anne Hamilton-Byrne wore pearls and Chanel perfume. She played the harp and sang soprano. She had blonde hair, styled in waves that caught the light. As leader of the Family, the Australian doomsday cult she founded in the 1960s, she claimed to be Jesus reborn as a woman. Much of her power, say her former followers, lay in her gray-blue eyes. In ancient times, we heard about enchantresses who could enslave people with one glance, says ex-acolyte Fran Parker. She had eyes that looked through your soul.
28 young people went through our hands.
Why did you do that?
I love children.
How did Anne manage to create this cult? Anne was born as Evelyn Edwards in 1921 to a mentally ill mother and an absent father. Anne Hamilton-Byrne was working as a yoga teacher when she met English physicist Dr. Raynor Johnson in 1963. The following year, they set up a group dedicated to spreading a surreal combination of Christianity and Hinduism, with Hamilton-Byrne at its center. Anne started with leading this religious and philosophical discussion group at Santiniketan, the home of parapsychologist Raynor Johnson on the eastern outskirts of Melbourne in the Dandenong Ranges suburb of Ferny Creek. The group purchased an adjoining property which they named Santiniketan Park in 1968 and constructed a meeting hall called Santiniketan Lodge. The group consisted of middle-class professionals, a quarter of whom were medical personnel recruited by Johnson via Hamilton-Byrne's Hatha yoga classes. Members mainly lived in the suburbs of Melbourne and in townships of the Dandenong Ranges, meeting each Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday evening at Santiniketan Lodge at Crowther House in Olinda, or another property in the area known as the White Lodge. By the 1980s, police estimated that Hamilton-Byrne's fortune was as much as $50 million. The Family Cult, Uprising, and Downfall. Marion Villemek, one of the members of the cult, was an owner of a private psychiatric hospital, New Haven Hospital in Kew. Many of its staff and attending psychiatrists were also members. The family recruited some of the hospital's patients into the group and administered the hallucinogenic drug LSD to both patients and members under the direction of family psychiatrists John McKay and Howard Whitaker. One of the original members of the family was given LSD, electroconvulsive therapy, and 2 leucotomies during the late 1960s. Although New Haven Hospital had been closed down by 1992, an inquest was ordered that year into the death of a patient in 1975 that was alleged to have been due to deep sleep therapy. The inquest heard evidence concerning the use of electroconvulsive therapy, LSD, and other practices at New Haven, but found no evidence that deep sleep had been used on the deceased patient. Hamilton-Byrne acquired 14 infants and young children between 1968 and 1975. Some were the biological children of members of the family. Others had been obtained through illegal adoptions arranged by lawyers, doctors, and social workers within the group who could bypass normal protocols. The children's identities were changed using false birth certificates or deed polls. All were given the surname Hamilton-Byrne and made to dress alike, even to the extent that most had their hair dyed uniformly blonde. The children were kept in seclusion and homeschooled at Kailama, a rural property usually referred to as Uptop at Taylor Bay on Lake Eildon. All were told that Hamilton-Byrne was their biological mother and knew the other adults in the group as aunties and uncles. They were denied almost all access to the outside world and subjected to a discipline that included starvation diets and frequent, unprovoked beatings. Doses of the psychiatric drugs were frequently administered to the children. On reaching adolescence, they were compelled to undergo an initiation process involving LSD. While under the influence of the drug, the child would be left in a dark room, alone, apart from visits by Hamilton-Byrne or one of the psychiatrists from the family. Attracting middle-class New Age parents and doling out heaps of LSD, Hamilton-Byrne convinced them to hand over custody of their kids to her in order to create a master race. Taking in kids from brainwashed parents over the course of nearly 20 years, she raised her flock as her own at a secluded property. Speaking of her obsession with creating a brood of identical children, she says, "I wanted them to look like brothers and sisters. I must admit this. I love them in their little smocks and jeans and the long hair and ribbons. It was beautiful. It was lovely to see." And when confronted about why she imprisoned 28 kids over her 20-year reign, she says simply,
I love children.
And despite apparently fawning over these innocent kids, allegations of beatings, starvation, and even the drugging of young boys and girls with powerful LSD in the 1970s and 80s are still rife. These accusations are laid bare in an upcoming documentary titled The Family, which even features chilling accounts from Hamilton-Byrne herself. Reality of the family revealed. The whole sickening practice was revealed when one daughter, Sarah Hamilton-Byrne, was expelled in 1987 for her rebellious behavior, and Sarah alerted police to the cult. Now, in the new documentary, other former Lake Eildon children have opened up about their brutal ordeal. Ben Shenton talks of how Sarah was once violently beaten with a belt for disobeying orders. "Sarah was thrashed," he says with tears in his eyes. "I was watching her being belted with a buckle, and she's being beaten to the point where she's wriggling out of her clothes. Hearing her body smash across the balustrades, it was horrendous to know they had the power to do that and would do it." The family ended forever. After the 1987 police raid led to the rescue of 6 children from the cult, Hamilton-Byrne and her husband Bill fled Australia. 6 years later, they were found by the FBI in Hurleyville, New York, and were extradited back to Oz, where they faced charges of fraud relating to falsely registering 3 children as their own. Hamilton-Byrne's husband died in 2001. She attended the funeral in her only public appearance following her conviction. In later years, it was reported that Hamilton-Byrne was living in a Melbourne nursing home and suffering from dementia, and that an internal succession crisis for leadership of the group was unfolding. In an interview, Ben Shenton, a former adoptee of the family, said the group had become a toothless tiger. Sarah Hamilton-Byrne died in 2016, aged 46. Anne Hamilton-Byrne died on 13th of June 2019, aged 97. Detective Lex DeMann, who led the investigation into the cult, told the media, "My only regret is she was never held totally to account for the misery she caused to the former cult children. I have no sympathy for the woman I consider the most evil person I ever met in my police career."
Of all the crimes that I investigated, she is the most evil person that I've ever met.